I feel like Thais are fatigued. I feel like they've been exposed to so many bad tours now. It's just wearing away. I ask people, even Thais, have things changed? They say, oh yeah. But in 3 to 5 years, I feel like Forrest, like the reasons why I moved to Thailand, some of those are starting to fade.
So in this video, we meet my friend Philip. Philip is in his late 50s. Is probably one of the most energetic 50-plus-year-old guys I've ever met here in Thailand. He runs his YouTube channel called The Borderless Office, where he travels all over Thailand, interviewing locals and expats alike, and explores the more off the beaten path, the more countryside of Thailand. But in this video, we discuss why Philip left America for Thailand 5 years ago, some of the problems that America is facing, and with the recent influx of mass tourism and how it could affect Thailand and how it can affect Thai culture and lifestyle. Let's go meet Philip.
I'm trying to think about the most interesting way of starting this interview. I'm just going to start this from the heart. I've been following your channel for about 2 to 3 years now. And the first video I saw was like a video about you telling about how seeing the state of America, of what it is. So I saw that and I really resonated with that, saying like, yeah, like this seems like a lot of things are going downhill. There's no safety in America, especially in our home state of California. And then the second video I remember seeing was you going to Rolling Loud, Thailand. I swear to God, you have more energy than most like younger kids, going around interviewing people, interviewing artists like Jay Park and everyone. And I was like, man, when I reach his age, I want to be just as vibrant and just have that same amount of vitality and energy, like going after it, making videos, chatting with everyone. Just you emanate a very positive energy. But some of the guys that are putting out content, like in their 50s or 60s, some of them can be a bit more negative, a bit more daunting. But you're putting out videos about like condo tours, living in more quieter countryside parts of Thailand, and you just all around have a very positive vibe and a positive energy coming from you. So that's why like I'm like, this guy's cool as shit. That's why I reached out to you, learn about your life story. I want to introduce Philip. You have the channel called The Borderless Office.
Yep.
Giving us an intro, telling the audience and telling myself, you know, your upbringing and you know what you did for the majority of your life.
Well, likewise, I've been admiring your channel for a while. It's the first time we've met in person. So the video you referred to like 2.5, 3 years ago, it was my first trip home post-COVID. So I had not been home in maybe it was almost 5 years because I left in 2019. So it'd been about 4 years, my first trip back.
Yeah.
And before I left America to come to Thailand, it was 2019. So for example, in 2019, Portland, Oregon, which I featured in that video, the city had totally changed. It went from in 2019 to being kind of the most hip place to move to for young people to the worst place to be in America. So that was like culture shock. That video in particular, after being in Asia, which was so peaceful and somewhat resilient through COVID, they didn't have the crisis that we saw on the West Coast in the US. The cities kind of bounced back and people got back into their groove. Then I went home and it was just shocking. And that was that video. And then I think shortly thereafter, or maybe it was right before, it was the Rolling Loud concert in Pattaya. Yeah. I moved to Thailand around 2019.
Have you traveled to Thailand before your 2019 move?
I did. My first trip was 2016.
2016?
And I did what a lot of guys do.
Yeah.
My first destination was Chiang Mai. That's all I knew about Thailand. And it was in my mind that maybe one day I could I looked around at the coffee shops and saw foreigners working on their laptop, sparked my interest, and thought maybe I'll do this one day, relocate to Chiang Mai. That was my first destination in 2019, Chiang Mai.
Was one of the biggest attractions towards you coming to 2016 Chiang Mai, was it the whole digital nomad, being able to work remotely? Was that what initially drew your appeal?
Of course, I think it was freedom.
Yeah.
I just saw in people working remotely, like at the coffee shop.
Yeah.
And they were in Thailand at the time. Chiang Mai, again, was probably a little more different back then than it is today. Yeah. It had a good vibe, and I thought, man, this is freedom. They're living where they want to live. They seem to be doing things they enjoy doing.
Did you have any experience working remotely before 2016?
Well, old timer. We didn't have computers when I was born.
Oh, shit.
But like, I mean, grew up in Napa, lived in Oregon, Arizona, finished school in Santa Barbara, and then did a master's program at Arizona State. But the first time I was introduced to remote work, I mean, coming out of college, I was still dialing phone numbers, making sales calls with an old phone. cell phones were just coming out. So the whole remote working, when did I first get introduced to it? I think really was that trip to Chiang Mai.
Trip to Chiang Mai.
But before then, I wasn't much of a digital savvy person. I was doing some creative work, but I wasn't familiar with e-commerce or even making videos.
Was your background before that, was your background in sales?
That's right. So, I mean, growing up, my dad was sales. I was born in Japan, and he was doing sales for a big U.S. shipping company in Japan. And I watched him all growing up. So the first job I got out of college was sales.
Nice. And then you followed your dad's footsteps working in the same company?
Yeah, I mean, he came from a generation which was go work for the same company.
Yeah.
Worked there 40 years. That was kind of what was put in my brain. And that's kind of the path I started going down before realizing it wasn't what I wanted. And
what was it that you wanted?
Yeah, man, it's been a constant. I admire those guys that figure it out early.
Yeah.
Because for me, it hasn't been figuring out early. It's been a constant discovery, constantly trying new things, a lot of failing. But it took some time to finally land, I think, in a spot that everything feels good. In regard to work and life, everything kind of gels together now.
Yeah.
But it took a long time to get there. And I think some guys we know have mentors, and they had good guidance right through career, or even maybe family decisions. Yeah, that wasn't the case for me. It was the school of hard knocks. Just
it was for you trying out many different
figuring
things.
Things
like,
out.
All right, this doesn't work, let me try something else.
That's
this
right.
doesn't work, let me try something out. Now, even today in 2025, do you feel like you finally figured out what you truly want?
Man, I don't know if I'll ever, I try to keep my mind open.
Yeah.
But I think living in Thailand, it's gotten me closer to feeling good. Just day to day, more peace, more good, peaceful in my soul. And I think a lot of that has to do with being out of the U.S. wiring, right? Which is buy, consumerism, material possessions, buy the house, buy the car, shop, acquire, keep collecting. And I've really detached from that now. And I think also in American culture, what I was probably a reflection of, seeking validation. I look at my life choices leading up to moving to Thailand. There was a lot of that seeking approval from society, from women, from males. Am I okay? And I was relying on society to give me that. I don't have that anymore.
Out of curiosity, you grew up with that programming, I grew up with that programming. What was that one moment, or it could be a combination of moments that made you click in your mind saying, wait, I don't need to seek validation from my peers or from women or from society? What was that pivotal moment or set of moments that made you realize, I don't need to do this? Was it your trip to Thailand that made you have a mindset shift?
Believe it or not, I think it was what happened in Chiang Mai at the beginning of 2020. So I arrived there 2019 at the end, thinking I'm gonna buy a condo, take Thai lessons, get a girlfriend. And then I turned on the news, right, in February and March of 2020, and all we saw was the footage from China with all the white bodysuits, and they were tearing people out of apartments, and it looked so scary, right? That's all we knew. And then right around the time the US had that, if you're American, you better come home now, or we're gonna shut down. And then in Chiang Mai around March is when all that pollution comes. And I got thinking, what if you catch COVID now and you have a lung problem?
Yeah.
And I went to the airport that day. I said, I want to go to Fukuoka, Japan.
Yeah.
I thought if I was in southern Japan, it looked safest. I did a little research, good hospitals. They put me on a plane to Taipei. They said, you stay one night and then you go to Japan, but the next day the airport closed in Taiwan. So back to your question, when did I start feeling that kind of more, feeling comfortable with me? It happened in Taiwan.
Yeah.
I was there 1 year.
During COVID?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we didn't know it was going to be a year. But I was so alone in Taiwan. There were some cultural reasons for that. I mean, people speak English in Taiwan, but it was deeper than that. In their view, if you were a foreigner, you probably had COVID. So I actually got refused service a lot. Go to a restaurant, they wouldn't let me in. I bought a bicycle and rode my bike around Taiwan alone. And I think that was the moment of feeling good. I was out there on my bike every day, just riding solo, complete solitude. And everywhere was really quiet because there was a lot of fear. So you'd stop at a beachside hotel. I'd be the only one there. I think that's when it started. It was in Taiwan where I was just alone. I had to figure out how to celebrate me. That's kind of when I started my YouTube, studying Taiwan history.
Even with, the Taiwanese being scared of you of being the only foreigner or one of the few foreigners there, you didn't feel any type of resentment, you didn't feel like bitterness towards them or towards yourself or towards the world?
I had another fellow American who was stuck there at the same time.
Yeah.
And I was starting to feel depressed. It started to really wear on me. And there were days where I'd be in a funk, naturally, like, what is this place? But I'd find it, I'd snap out of it. But I felt so isolated, and I talked to my friend who was there at the time too. His name was Maran Kama. And he was also living in Thailand, but ended up stuck there. And I thought maybe it was just me, but he said no. He goes, man, I was so depressed over there, feeling so isolated. That's how it was then in Taiwan. And there were those days of, get me out of here. But then I would turn on the news to America, and they were in worse shape, right? There was all the riots and the break-ins, and that didn't look like a good option.
I was there for 8 months. It was not good at all.
But what did still felt like a good option, even though all the news out of here wasn't great either, everything closed. But I knew if I came back here, I'd be back to the warm hearts. And no matter how bad things get here, Thais just have a resilience about them.
Yes.
They figure out a way to still make the best of each day. You see the guy in the street pushing that heavy cart, working every day. Somehow he's smiling. And that's finally, I just said, I don't care if I catch COVID. I need to get back to Thailand.
Happiness was more of a priority for you.
I think just emotional well-being. And I think that was part of Taiwan too. I had to get out of there. It just wasn't healthy.
Yeah.
And I think people that say the environment doesn't matter, they're wrong. It does matter. Sometimes I'll talk to people that say everywhere's the same, it's how you look at it. And I will say, through my experience, I can speak for me, that environment does matter.
You are the product of your environment.
Man, and there are certain places, even in Thailand, I will feel one way, better than another part. Or when I go back home, I have to ask myself, how am I feeling?
You're mentioning about leaving Taiwan and going back to Thailand to be around more positive energy, positive vibes. Do you think that in America that's completely lost, that those priorities are no longer a thing, and that those are something that we can never recover ever again?
Those good vibes, man. I think about this often.
Yeah.
And every time I go home, it's kind of like I'm doing a check, because maybe for you too, when I come back for months at a time to Thailand, there's things that happen during the day here that frustrate me, that really test my patience. It's not perfect here. And I sometimes will get into almost like a rut of, F this, I'm out of here. I don't need this. I'm going to go back home. When I do go back home, it's kind of always that check in to see what's the vibe. And the good vibe, I will say this, the one video that we were talking about that I did my first trip back after COVID, it was really bad. It was heavy. Then I went back the next year, last year. It felt better than the year before. So now when I go back in a few months, it's going to be another kind of pulse, but it's heaviness. There's some heaviness, and I feel it right when I get off the airplane in the U.S. People have this languish, I think is the word.
Yeah.
Ennui, there's just kind of fighting through the day. One more day. And waiting for the next ball game to watch, on TV.
Yeah.
Or at the stadium. Will we get it back? Man, I hope so, but I don't think it's going to be. When was the last time it was real joyful?
I can't remember. I hate to say, it just seems like these past maybe 8 to 20 years has been quite heavy.
And it's usually tied to economic booms when people get more seduced, I guess, like, for example, the housing boom.
Yeah.
2005, 2006. The internet boom back around 2000. But there was all this money being dropped on different parts of the U.S. But I don't know if we're going to have one of those again.
Even if we do have another economic boom, which, obviously with many cycles we will, it kind of just seems like a endless state of consumption where you're spending and spending, but you're never truly satisfied.
Yeah, Forrest, man. It's like right now, even all the news is tariffs, 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 which to me, this sounds like consumption, where consumption has become the weapon. And I did a video recently, and the more living here, the more I look at Buddhism and the principles of Buddhism, and parts of Buddhism really resonates. And going back to consumption, there is a part of Buddhism that I think accurately describes the difference between Thailand and the US. And they have this thing called, it's like dukkha, or being unsatisfied. It all has to do with what we have and what we want. So if what we have here is what we want, that dukkha, or the unsatisfaction, is right here. You're what you call content. If what you want is up here, but what you have is this, you're super unhappy. And I feel like that's America. People have material items. They have a lot there, but they keep wanting more. And the more they want, the more unhappiness.
Yeah.
And that's actually in Buddhism that says, be content and you'll have more joy. I don't think this goes away for the US because there constantly is a culture where we're programmed at an early age to prescribe to all the financial instruments. Get your credit card, buy your house, buy cars, go to Costco a lot, keep consuming. So I don't know, I don't think, and every time I am checking in with kind of the culture in the US, it's constant consumption.
I was having this conversation with my girlfriend last night during dinner. We talk about middle class Thais. A lot of them are just making 16, 17,000 baht per month, which is roughly around 500 US dollars. But they're still quite happy, like very happy. They'll live in low income housing, which is around 2 to 3,000 baht a month. They may not have the best, but their priority is just being happy and content, even though they're making below, I guess, the American standard. Would you consider that like a culture shock when we were to witness some of these middle class Thais living the way that they are?
Well, yeah, I mean, you said it. They're making like, I have a newscaster friend, she makes like, you were saying 15,000 baht a month, but to translate that, that's just under $450. And she's out enjoying her life, like everyone who's making 15 to 20. I just think, that's not a lot of money. But they also have health care. They don't have to worry about that. Now, it's at a social hospital, but they have health care, and a lot of the doctors working at that hospital work in the private ones that you and I pay for.
Yeah.
Their kind of core necessities are covered, like healthcare, there's transportation, they have their family unit, which, like my friend was saying, the family unit's the entire neighborhood. She'll say, I'm going with my sister, and I'm thinking to myself, she doesn't, her neighbor. So her neighbors are her sister.
Yeah.
Now she's picking up her grandfather because he's at the hospital, but it's the neighbor. And then they have food. So I think even in America, it's really hard to go out to eat right now if somebody's making 40 grand a year, $40,000 a year. Here you're making $5,000 a year, but you can go out to dinner every night.
Yes.
And enjoy that part of life. People are actually out enjoying together having a meal, a really good meal. Back home, that's a luxury. So I think even at that low way, what we consider low, they're still living kind of in a rich, not a rich way, but a nice, they're enjoying life.
They're happy.
Yeah, whereas in the US, I just read an article that in 20 US cities, I think it's like $150,000 a year is not enough. I think it's hard in the US. And I think it's a lot easier to live with less in Thailand. It's a lot easier to live with less. We're not constantly being bombarded with stuff to go buy.
No, not
or
at all.
with labels. I mean, no one's looking at, I mean, some people do. They're looking at handbags and label, but it's not common.
Yeah.
If you don't want it to be.
How do I say the Thai culture is? It's more, family is placed on a much higher emphasis. Like family values, the family unit, the neighborhood unit, it's placed much more in a bigger emphasis. Versus you kind of don't see much of that. The only time I can remember that ever happening is probably around the 1940s and 50s, where everybody's genuinely looking out for one another, like this neighborhood togetherness.
Mm-hmm.
You still have that here in Thailand. You don't really have that in the United States anymore. I do miss that. There are times that I would have discussions with my girlfriend about this, and I'm like, this month I'm having a bad month, but hopefully next month is better. And she would always remind me, like, hey, like to be honest, like even if you're having a bad month and you're not, your business isn't doing as well, compared to a lot of people, you're actually doing just quite fine. It's honestly no big deal. If middle class or low middle class income Thais are able to make it work, you can make it work as well. Living here kind of makes you grounded, makes you more down to earth, and makes you realize that like as long as your health is good, you have food on the table, you have 6 months worth of expenses taken care of, you're happy, you're healthy, that's all your basic necessities.
And I feel like people who are making the bare minimum here, I'd much rather be a person making the bare minimum here and having a content life. Meaning, you see the guy with his wife and they have the little carriage here with their kids riding in some of the, like in Phuket or Krabi, right? You see less of it in Bangkok. Riding along, but they're all laughing. The mom's laughing, she has a baby. There's 2 kids jumping around that little thing, and they're going out for a meal that they can afford. Like a home-cooked meal. And then you see sometimes I'll look over my shoulder, I'll see some tourists. Obviously from a Western country. And the guy's just kind of moping along. The wife moping along. And those 2 little kids screaming. Oh. And it's just a reminder, they had enough money to take the trip, but man, I wouldn't want to trade places. I think I would trade places with the Thai guy, with the laughing wife and the baby, and they're having fun. They have a joyful day.
Happiness.
Right?
Happiness, that's all that matters. One thing I'm really curious to ask you about in this next topic is, you've been here for what, around 4 years?
Yeah,
give or
so
take?
2019, not
5.
with Taiwan in there, so.
Like 4 or 5 years.
4 or 5 years.
And I've seen some of your recent videos that you prefer living more countryside compared to, let's say, big city like in Bangkok or Chiang Mai, or even Phuket gets overwhelming lately. What led you to having a more preferential treatment living in countryside Thailand, like in Surat, where you mentioned in your previous videos, compared to Bangkok living?
Yeah, so I've been spending a lot more time in, say, Surat, but the evolution to get there was when I returned from Taiwan. I stayed over here at the hotel and did my quarantine for 10 days. And then I was thinking, all right, got through 10 days of quarantine, I'm going to go to the ocean, not go back to where I was in Chiang Mai. And I thought I was going to go to Phuket for 1 week. I got down there, it was paradise. It was heaven. There was no people. It was empty. So that was in 2021. All the beaches were empty. I had never seen it before. That was my first impression. I stayed there 4 years. But those first 2 years, it was pristine. Amazing. But then what happened with the Ukraine war, right? As everyone reads now, it became the Russia playground. It just wasn't the same. It got really crowded. And I knew the reason I moved to Thailand was to be around the culture and to be around, I don't want to be around tourists.
We'll be around Thai people.
I wanted to be around real Thailand. And that's when I started kind of searching out other places that felt good. So I kind of went on this tour. But one thing I knew when I arrived in Surat, it was great for me. There were no tours, and it was convenient to hop over to Koh Samui or Koh Phangan. I like being near the water. There's a river. The ocean's not too far. So now I do prefer it for kind of day to day, just peace and quiet, and very much Thai culture. Not any tourism really. So yeah, it was between there and maybe Krabi, but they're both in the south, both near the water, and less interest in returning to say Chiang Mai.
Chiang Mai is already overrun by, let's say, mainland Chinese tourists and digital nomads.
Yeah, that force. I mean, I think my perspective changed.
Yeah.
When all I knew was Chiang Mai, it seemed pretty good back then. It was all I knew of Thailand. But then when I got exposed to the South, in every way the South, compared to a Chiang Mai, to me it's not even close. And then when returning to Chiang Mai, my dentist is there, so I still go every 6 months to see my dentist. It just takes a day to validation to know that's not for me. And yeah, it is the tourism, but it's not only the tourism, it's the vibe. You see way less joyfulness in Chiang Mai.
Yeah.
The locals, they just very serious. Not very much. You go down to the south, people are laughing and a little bit of sarcasm and playfulness. You're not going to find that in Chiang Mai. And then even on the digital nomad side, I say digital gonads, because I look at these guys If they were really ballers, they'd go back to America.
Facts.
Austin, if you're a young entrepreneur, don't go to Chiang Mai.
No.
That's a very low vision for young entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
They're not entrepreneurs. They're all SEO gurus, which are going out of business, thanks to AI.
Yeah.
But then the older guys like me, the older guys around Thailand, I've been to enough places now. Each place kind of attracts a different kind of older guy.
Yeah.
So Krabi, they're fit. You go out on the beach in Krabi, guys my age running, ripped. You go to, I'll even say Pattaya, you have a lot of American dudes that have a little swag to their walk.
Yeah.
For probably some of the obvious reasons. But then you get to Chiang Mai and there's just a lot of what I call aimless old guys, smoking, drinking beer. And if you're okay living in that smoke, you don't really value your health.
Kind of going back to what you mentioned earlier, you know, you see some of the Thais that kind of that have lost that luster in their face over in Chiang Mai. I've had these discussions with some of the older expats that they were telling me, like, Pattaya 40 years ago, you know, you see much happier local Thais over there. You don't see that much now. Is it probably because everybody's in survival mode because they don't want to get taken advantage of by tourists? You know, they have to have this like stronger exterior. Do you think that could be the reason?
Yeah, so I think I've thought about this too. It's all over Thailand. I feel like Thais are fatigued. It's just like worn out. I feel like they've been exposed to so many bad tourists now. It's just wearing away. And I think then just the regular stresses that everyone has anyway right now in the world, because everywhere is pretty stressful, whether you're in Europe or America or, I mean, everywhere. Definitely, and I ask people, even Thais, have things changed in the last 5 years? They say, oh yeah, not only the last 5, the last 2 and the last 1. And I mean, definitely in Phuket, but they just got buried by bad people, bad tourists. And I think it wore them out. I think in Chiang Mai it's different. I think they've always had that no expression, just it's how it is up there. Not a lot of sarcasm or laughter, no. But then you go down to Krabi, you feel it again. A little more with southern joy. I definitely agree that, like you said, the luster.
Tourism fatigue.
It's just, I think, fatigue, and it's getting more expensive, and their wages aren't going up. So I think there's that strain. And even though more tourists arrive, I don't think the common guy on the street is getting the benefit. I think that money's going to the top and their expenses are going up, but they're not making more money. I'm guessing, but even when I talk to locals or other people who are kind of wondering the same, they seem to say it's different now.
I think with the recent article from the Bangkok Post that they just put out, I think so far year to date, tourism numbers are at a relatively pretty low. Mm-hmm. This next question is more on speculation, but what's going to happen in the 3 to 5 year trajectory? Things are only going to get worse for Thailand in regards to this type of tourism, or do you think Thailand will probably have to pivot towards a different industry?
Yeah, man, that's a good question. 3 to 5 years. And like we saw, tourism spiked way up here. Now they're saying it's really sliding down, the trend. And not only the tourists, but the kind of tourists. And if you pull up any headlines, if you take Phuket as kind of a beta test of what happens when you just open it up and let anyone show up, all the problems that occur. But in 3 to 5 years, I feel like Forrest, like the reasons why I moved to Thailand, some of those are starting to fade. Meaning, I moved here for that, let's be frank, like that Thai joyfulness, just overall contentment, where it just feels good. I still sense that in some smaller areas of Thailand, but I don't think it's going to get better. That kind of collective energy in 3 to 5 years, what happens to Bangkok? It's a big city, but they're saying that even here, the overbuilt a little bit. So maybe the economy starts, and all the headlines in the Bangkok Post right now is about not only tourism numbers going down, but economic numbers. Maybe there's some darker times ahead, and you go to Phuket, there's new condos everywhere that are all money laundering. Those condos aren't going to be purchased anytime soon. What happens if Myanmar creates peace? Meaning, all your workers right now in Thailand, the people working their tails off, the landscapers, the kitchen staff, the construction workers, they're all from Myanmar.
Yep.
If they have peace back home, a lot are going to go home. That's going to be another crisis for Thailand.
Local Thais aren't going to work those jobs.
They don't want to do those jobs. Something has to happen though, right? You probably, you have an experience too, but I mean, even I have those days now. They used to surface maybe once every 30 days. They're coming around more often where I'm like, should I just go home? Like, Thailand's still good, but it used to be the good really outweighed what I was enjoying that I would not get back home.
Now it's closing in.
Now it's just starting to do a little bit of this.
I'm quite worried about that, but I mean, we'll see. That I feel like some areas you're starting to lose that whole sabai culture, and then the smaller cities like in Surat or let's say in Phetchabun or parts of Isan like Surin, you still have that joyful sabai culture. My final question is that before this interview, you told me that, can I divulge your age?
Sure.
You're of the age of 58, and you know, compared to the rest of your peers living here, you're extremely proactive. You work out, you're making content, you're always on the go, you're always constantly traveling. So I want to get your inputs about like, what is it that makes you have such a positive mindset that you're always like, go, you're always out like doing stuff? What makes Philip the way he is?
You know, that old man's knocking at the door,
Yeah.
and I don't want to let him in yet. I intentionally, before I go to bed, stay in the lane of a growth mindset, meaning I want to keep learning, right? I want to keep, even physically, in a way where that old man wants to start saying, hey, that knee hurts, quit going to the gym. Say, get out of here, I'll go to the physical therapist every day of the week so I can get back in the gym. So yeah, the growth mindset probably is the big one. I want to keep exploring. I don't want life to stop yet. And I feel like when that old man gets in, things start to slow down. And I don't want to get trapped in rigidity where I'm not exploring. Every time it's time to hop on a plane and go on a trip, I dread it. I don't want to go. I really don't. I'd much rather come back up here at the M Cordier, go out for some food, go to the park, stay out of airports. But what I know, every time I get out of the zone, you know, I'll be in Africa all next month, all this month, leave on Saturday. I'm not really looking forward to it. Not now. But once I get there, man, things start to, you know, the brain opens up and it feels alive, and learn from other cultures. And I'm at the end of the trip, I'm always so happy that I went. I think the other thing though that inspires me, Forrest, it's all those dudes when we go downstairs here at the bar on the street, old guys like me sipping beer and smoking cigarettes. They inspire me in a weird way, because I know that program's not for me. But it also to me feels like, what a waste of living. Not a waste of a life. Everyone's respected in that sense. But man, there's so much more to living life than to sit at a bar and smoke and drink beer. So I don't want that to end anytime soon. And a lot of it just has to do, you know, every day I'm saying, that old man reminds me, either with sometimes a sore knee or a, you know, sore shoulder, or something that says, let's get comfortable and just stay in one place all year long, which maybe eventually, right? Just not now.
What is one final piece of advice you can give to everyone out there watching this video?
I think your viewers, you have a lot of Western countries,
Yes.
but you have some Thai audience too. Man, I think about this sometimes, this question in particular, not only for guys watching, because most of even my viewers are male, but some female, and I'm sure same for your demographic.
Exactly.
But I think even for, I just came from the university today, had a meeting over there, and they brought this question up too. I even think for kids right now, and then I saw it recently where so many people are trapped on the phone in this almost in zombie mode. I have one advice, and that's doing what we're doing. Pull out the camera and make a video, no matter what it is. And I think for kids too, because when they're forced to go out and talk to people, just pretend it's a kid or an old guy, whatever, and they're gonna document their walk down Sukhumvit to have noodles. And they're documenting that whole process, including the noodle shop, and maybe they have to interview 3 people.
Yeah.
I feel like that cures a lot of issues in the world, meaning people will talk to each other.
Yeah.
It forces the person to do something that can't be done by a computer. You know, now we're being faced with ChatGPT and everything, but GPT can't go up and do this, what we're doing.
Yeah.
and interview. I think, and I tell every once in a while when I'm working with college, either in college or graduate, man, start a podcast, start a vlog, even if it's just 1 or 2 or 3 videos. Now, even for guys my age, even, I tell them the same thing, right? That I think when you're out being forced to create something like a video, it's almost like therapy for me. And I don't know about you, Forrest, but I mean, almost every time I get ready to do a vlog, I dread it. It's kind of like that trip.
Me too. Oh my God, I thought that was the only one.
And I'll sit there and there's almost 2 sides of buckets I'm gonna fall in.
Yeah.
This one's over here, dreadful. Like, I just want to dread. I don't want to go do this thing. But then I always know if I force it and push myself out the door, man, then the opposite happens. I feel alive. And I start meeting people that I would have never met if I wasn't vlogging. And then it just wakes me back up. But I think there's a magic that happens, even especially for older guys. If they are told, go use your camera and go make a video, because the flip side's not good. And you can sense it sometimes in comments. I just sense that sometimes a guy's commenting, he's sour about something or in a funk. The best medicine for that guy would be to make a vlog.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's probably just had a crappy day or something. He's probably had some deep internal problems. It's probably nothing personal.
Or just getting rigid and in that funk.
Yeah.
And hey, I'm human. I feel that funk come on sometimes, but I also know what gets me out of it. And one thing that gets me out of it is to go create a video, go explore, go take a hike. And I think, that's the biggest, thing I would tell you. Ask the question. For all ages, create a video, create a vlog. For guys my age, you're younger, Forrest, you're 39.
Yeah.
So I've got a few years on you, 20 years. I think get out and get active.
Go out.
Be curious. Yeah. Talk to people. Enjoy, man, because life is short. And that old man wants in. Don't let him in.
Keep going out. Keep progressing.
And sometimes the old man gets into a young boy's body. I know guys who are 30 and they act 60.
Oh, I'm not gonna lie. Lately, I've been acting like I'm 60.
But I mean, mentally, you're too curious to be old. You still have this youthful energy, and you will have that for a long time.
Yeah.
But there are guys I know who probably stopped living around 30. They're just, the old man got in. They don't travel, they don't explore. They just don't do a lot. They're not growing.
So stay curious, keep growing.
Man.
Don't stop.
And don't let the old man in.
Don't let the old man in.
And Thailand will give you a lot of excuses to not let the old man in. I mean, I feel more youthful here. It's easier to feel that for me than it is when I'm back home.
Same. That's why I want to stay here.
And we didn't talk about it, Forrest, but I mean, and I just did a full interview in Pattaya with guys. Pattaya, people think, oh my God, what a sleazy place and blah, blah. However you want to label it, go ahead. But what I noticed with guys my age down there, they had a little extra hop in their step.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's a plentiful availability of what everyone knows about Pattaya. But the guys that are living there, they feel more young.
Yeah, I would say so.
Even when they're 60, they feel more young.
Philip, I just want to say that thanks for taking the time to do this interview. And, I say this truly with all sincerity, you inspire me. As I age, I want to stay young. I want to keep going after it. I want to keep making videos. I want to keep maintaining my fitness, keep meeting people. And, watching your videos 2 to 3 years ago, you are the prime example of I want to keep doing that as I progress, or as I get older and older.
Thank you, Forrest.
So I just want to say, thanks for inspiring me, and thanks. I'm sure you've inspired everybody that's really interested in Thai content.
Man,
So
well, thank you, Forrest, and ditto on the inspiration factor. I enjoy your content, man. Always good to watch your videos.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Philip.
Yeah. So farewell from Bangkok, I guess.
Yeah. So we're going to conclude this video right here. If you guys haven't, I'm going to link all of Philip's socials in the description down below. He's got amazing content on his channel. Be sure to subscribe and check out Philip's channel, The Borderless Office.
The Borderless Office.
Thanks for doing this interview, Philip. Thanks for watching, guys. Take care. Be kind to one another. I'll see you guys in the next video.
See you guys.
Cheers. Bye-bye.